guys, welcome to another episode of Keith's Pod. It's been a while since I've done an episode. I've been very busy. I've just moved house and I've only got the internet connected in the last few days. Now, this pod episode is in relation to the upcoming 2025 federal election. I made this pod to be interesting for the pod listeners out there. I won't be brainwashing people on who they should be voting for. I still haven't actually made a decision myself on who I'll be voting for. I am a bit of a swing voter, so now I've never done so much research of article reading, watching clips on YouTube, watching the election debates. There's been 4 of them. Never been so invested in my life. I found it very interesting with my results and information I've collated. In terms of the Australian politics, I'm really interested in the upcoming federal election, and I wanted to accumulate as much information as possible to speak about on this pod episode. Now, the following is what I will be speaking about on this pod episode. I'll be speaking about the Albanese Labor government and what they've done over the last 3 years. I'll give a brief summary of the last 4 federal debates that have occurred this year and the notes I've taken down, what the Labor and the Liberal parties are offering in 2025. I'll be speaking about the Greens Party, what their policies are, and how they occasionally do deals with the Labor Party by giving them all their votes to help them win an election. I'll be speaking about Clive Palmer and his political party called the Trumpet of Patriots. I'll be speaking about Pauline Hanson and her One Nation Party's policies. Yes, Pauline is unfortunately still around in Australian politics. The differences between left-wing and right-wing politics, which one Liberal and which one is Labor. And for the American listeners, I'll be speaking about which Australian Liberal and Labor parties are similar to the American Republican and Democrat parties in terms of policies. Now, firstly, I will speak about the Albanese Labor government and what they've done in the last 3 years. They've increased minimum wage payments. They've legislated the right for workers to not answer their phones on their days off, right to connect. They've given homeowners and renters $300 energy bill rebates. They've amended relationships with China by ending tariffs with them. In relation to the environment, they've invested in doubling Australia's recycling capacity with new glass and plastic recycling facilities. I live in the Hobson Bay municipality, so where I live, they have glass bins with the purple lids. This is the first time I've ever seen glass bins like this anywhere I've lived, so good on you, Albanese. They've doubled taxes on people who have over $3 million in their superannuation accounts. They've imposed bigger tax cuts for low and mid-income earners, and they've taxed high-income earners even more by resetting the Morrison's tax bracket for high-income earners. He spent $450 million of taxpayers' money on the failed 2023 referendum of the Voice campaign election. Over 60% of Australians voted no. He has given over $1.3 billion in aid to help Ukraine in their war against Russia. In case the pod listeners weren't aware, America have given Ukraine over $300 billion in aid. Just shows the difference in economic power compared to us in America. They can support another country with so much funds, whereas we can't. Now, I'll be giving a brief summary of the 4 federal debates that have occurred in the last month. I've taken notes on the following. Both Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese come across as both polite and passionate people. They are not arrogant, demonstrative people like Donald Trump, for example, thank God. Labor promises $10 billion to be dispersed to all Australian states to help them build a total of 100,000 homes exclusively for first-home buyers over the next 8 years. They also promise first-home buyers can provide a minimum 5% house deposit without paying extra for lenders' mortgage insurance. Now, this is a really good deal. I paid a 20% deposit for my house recently to avoid paying lenders' mortgage insurance. That's a 20% house deposit, by the way. There are some banks out there that will let you avoid paying lenders' mortgage insurance if you pay a 15% house deposit. On my second pod episode, I spoke to a mortgage broker about this. His name's Paddy Dwyer. Great pod. So guys, listen to pod episode 2 of mine if you haven't, and he speaks a fair bit about lenders' mortgage insurance in that episode. Labor are promising to boost the amount of solar panels installed on the roofs of both new and existing houses through a $2.3 billion program called the Cheaper Home Batteries Program. This will provide a 30% discount on typical home battery installations per house built with solar panels on their roofs. Labor are promising to increase funding for Medicare with an additional $18 million for bulk billing doctor general practitioner visits. Labor are promising to cut student HECS debts by 20%. Now, myself personally, I have a $23,000 HECS fee debt I still have. If Labor wins, they'll remove $4,600 from my HECS fee. This is just one of their benefits to ease the cost of living. Labor are promising to make TAFE courses free, whereas Liberal won't do this. Now, the following notes I have is what I've collated from Liberal. Liberal promises tax-deductible mortgages for first-home buyers, which means the interest paid for a newly built home will be tax-deductible for 5 years. However, this is only for the first $650,000 of the mortgage and for individuals who are earning up to $175,000 per year, or for couples who earn a combined annual income of $250,000. Liberal are promising to halve the fuel excise tax for 12 months, which will result in permanently reducing petrol prices by 25% per litre for the next 12 months. This is just one of their benefits to ease the cost of living. Liberal are promising to build 7 future nuclear power plants in Australia at locations where existing power plants have either closed or are about to close. For the pod listeners, the benefits of having nuclear power plants is that they produce nearly zero carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. France have used nuclear power since the 1970s, and their energy prices are a lot lower compared to other countries in the world. Liberal are promising to reduce the power of unions in the workplace. Liberal are promising to allow people to use their superannuation early to help pay for a house deposit. Liberal are promising to freeze changes to the Building Code of Australia for the next 10 years. In their opinion, this will reduce costs for building houses, as every time the BCA updates, it drives up the cost for building houses and purchasing them. For example, updating energy efficiency requirements for dwellings, which will drive up costs. Now, I am a building surveyor and I look at the Building Code of Australia virtually every day at work. There are 3 different types of the BCA. Volume 1 is the commercial design. Volume 2 is in relation to domestic house design, and Volume 3 is in relation to the plumbing and drainage design. The BCA 2022 Amendment 1 is to be released and enforced from the date May 1st, 2025, which is only a few days away. Now back to politics. Liberal are promising to introduce a 2-year ban on foreign investors buying existing homes in Australia. Liberal are promising to increase funding for Medicare with an additional $9 million for bulk billing general practitioner visits, which is half the amount that the Labor Party are proposing to spend. Liberal are promising to invest $21 billion into the Australian Defence Force over the next 5 years. Look, to me growing up, this is how I've interpreted politics between Liberal and Labor. The Liberal Party were known as the government who would save the country's taxpayers' money, then the Labor Party were known as the government who would love to spend a lot of the country's taxpayers' money. Then once the country got into a large economic debt, we had no other choice but to vote in the Liberal Party again to save a lot of the country's tax money. Now, for people who don't know too much about Peter Dutton, here is some information I've collated about him. Peter Dutton has been involved with politics for over 20 years. He has longevity in politics, which means he's good at his job. Before he entered into politics, he served 9 years in the police force. He was part of the National Crime Authority drug and sex offender squads. In 2001, Peter was elected into Parliament. In 2006, which was the year I graduated from high school, John Howard appointed Peter Dutton as his Assistant Treasurer of the Liberal Party. In 2013, Tony Abbott appointed Peter Dutton as his Minister for Health and Minister for Sports. In 2014, Tony Abbott appointed Peter Dutton as his Minister for Immigration and Border Protection. In 2017, Malcolm Turnbull appointed Peter Dutton as his Minister of Home Affairs. In 2021, Scott Morrison appointed Peter Dutton as his Minister of Defence. Now, I'll be speaking about the Greens political party. They're a left-wing political party. Their main focus is on the environment policy and increasing spending on public services. They are the largest minor party in Australia. They're known to make deals with the Labor Party that results in them giving all their votes to help Labor win elections, as long as the Labor Party agree to certain conditions the Greens wish to have met. They want to stop new coal and gas projects. They want to end fossil fuel subsidies. They want to achieve 100% renewable energy to reduce electricity prices and emissions. Universal free childcare. Now, this would really benefit someone like myself, as I have an 18-month-old son in childcare. He's there 4 days a week, and I'm paying $704 a month to have him there, which includes the government subsidy. Childcare isn't cheap, and it's just as expensive sending your child to a childcare centre than sending them to a decent private school in their teenage years. They want to wipe HECS debt and reinstate free university and TAFE. That's something I'd really like, as I have a $23,000 HECS fee debt. They want to expand Medicare to include dental, pathology appointments, ADHD and autism diagnosis. They want to raise Centrelink payments that includes Austudy, disability pensions and age pensions. They are supportive of LGBTQ rights and disability rights, giving them funding to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. They want to lower the legal age of federal election voting to people who are 16 years of age instead of 18 years of age. They want to legalise cannabis. So imagine there's a lot of Aussie stoners out there that will be getting around the Greens and voting for them this election. Now, I'll be speaking about the Pauline Hanson One Nation political party. They're a right-wing to far right-wing nationalist and populist party. They were founded by Pauline Hanson back in 1997 after she was kicked out of the Liberal Party. They wish to reduce immigration by capping visas at 130,000 people per year. They wish to introduce an 8-year waiting period for citizenship and welfare if you're an immigrant. They wish to implement not charging GST tax over the next 5 years on building materials to reduce the cost of new housing and support the construction industry for new homes up to the value of $1 million. They wish to remove mandatory disability compliance requirements for all new homes that are to be built. She really doesn't want grab rails installed in housing toilets. They wish to abolish the National Indigenous Australians Agency. They wish for Australia to withdraw from the United Nations and the World Health Organization. They wish to halve the fuel tax excise for 3 years. They wish to increase the Medicare rebate. They wish to promote the use of medicinal marijuana. They wish to promote responsible firearm ownership. She's trying to turn Australia into America with that one. Now, I'll be speaking about the Trumpet of Patriots political party. Now, the lady you've seen on the TV ads with the glasses, her name's Suellen Wrightson, and she's the leader of the party. Clive Palmer is the chairperson of the party. He's a multi-billionaire in Australia who owns the coal mining company Mineralogy. His net worth is $3.4 billion, and he has funded $100 million of his own money into the party's election campaign. Now, Forbes, which is a business magazine, has also ranked Clive Palmer as the 18th richest Australian as of February 12th this year. They're a far right-wing nationalist party. They've merged with the United Australia Party, which was formerly Clive Palmer's party, with the Federation Party in 2024 to have enough members for registration. Mining Australian billionaire Clive Palmer joined after he couldn't re-register the United Australia Party before the 2025 election. They wish to cut immigration and prioritise migration from nations with similar values, for example, people from first world countries. They wish to limit the ability for foreign buyers to buy Australian homes and agricultural land. They wish to allow Australians to use 30% of their superannuation for a housing deposit and cap interest rates at 3% when paying their mortgages. They're against supporting Ukraine in a struggle against their war against the Russian invasion. I disagree with this. Ukraine are a democracy and it's horrible what's happening over there. Over 1 million people from both Russia and Ukraine have actually died from this stupid war, which is all due to Vladimir Putin's power-hungry greed. If Australia is in a war with another country, especially a big country like China, then we really need help from other countries, as a country like China would absolutely romp us in a war. So we need to help other good countries who are in need of aid and where they're at a war to strengthen alliances. They're against digital IDs and central bank digital currencies. They want cash compulsory at all businesses. They're anti-renewable energy and want to open more coal-fired power plants. Now, opening more coal-fired power plants would help Clive Palmer's business make more money. Having more coal-fired power plants creates more greenhouse gas emissions. Clive clearly doesn't care about reducing the greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, which creates global warming, which is a real shame. They're against net zero emission targets as they believe environmental policies won't change the climate but will harm the economy. They do not wish to have Australia involved in any international conflicts that doesn't directly impact Australia's national interests. They do not wish Australia to be part of the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which is the same as the Pauline Hanson One Nation Party. Now, I'll be speaking about the differences between left-wing and right-wing politics. Left and right-wing politics are groupings of political ideas. Left-wing policies are the associates should strive to reduce inequality and promote fairness among all individuals. They tend to strongly support public healthcare systems. They support workers' unions for people to be paid fairly, have safe working conditions, and work reasonable hours. They support decent minimum wage payments to protect workers from being exploited. They support free and subsidised education for children. Now, right-wing policies focus on the importance of individual responsibility and personal freedoms. They advocate for lower taxes to allow individuals and businesses to keep more of their profits. They support the idea of a free market economy where supply and demand dictates prices and production without excessive regulation. They support strong defence systems and strict enforcement of laws to protect their country's citizens. The following are Australian parties and what wing policies they're categorised in. Labor is centre left-wing majority party. Liberal is centre right-wing majority party. The Greens are left-wing. Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party is right-wing to far right-wing, and the Trumpet Patriots are far right-wing. And for the American listeners out there, the Australian Labor Party is similar to the American Democrats Party, as they both favour left-wing policies, and the Australian Liberal Party are similar to the American Republicans, as they both favour right-wing policies. Now, that's the end of this pod episode. I hope you've all found this pod episode interesting with what I've had to say. Good luck to everyone out there who'll be voting. Take care and see you on the next episode of the Keats Pod. Cheers. Ciao.